following the Vajrabhairava. If you weren't able to make it live yesterday, this will get uploaded. It usually takes us, our team, a few days because the video just needs to be edited and then put on the sort of hosting service. And then in terms of our teachings here, Sundays are going to be going through until October 26th. On October 26th, we'll have our sort of big special event for the fall season, and that's going to be a Medicine Buddha initiation. And so Geshe will give that on the 26th of October. The date we have confirmed, I'm not sure if we have a time yet. Sometimes we make it like a little bit later in the day, like maybe 11 o'clock or something, just for preparation time, but it'll definitely be on the 26th. And this will kind of nicely fit into what we have planned for sometime in the period after Christmas and into the new year, which will be a Medicine Buddha retreat. And also some people were asking about the Bodhisattva vows, as Geshe is kind of teaching on that with this text. So those will be given on the 25th. The 25th, that's going to be the day before the Medicine Buddha initiation. If you can't make it on the 25th and you're worried about receiving the vows in relation to the initiation, don't, because it's built into the ceremony, but in a very, very kind of abbreviated way. So for those who'd like to take them more fully, that will be available on the 25th. And Geshe will also transmit a text related to Medicine Buddha on the 25th. So we're not sure what that is yet. We're working on that. Details to be announced. Dave's book group is running every Tuesday. We have also practice sessions again. So I usually do the Medicine Buddha the second Monday of every month. Dave and others will do a Tara Puja. And also we have a group of students who with Ryan are doing meditations in the morning, I believe on Monday and Tuesday. So a fairly full program as we go forward. And in terms of people's correspondence with me, with questions for Geshe and whatnot, I think that I have now caught up on that. But if I missed you for some reason, don't be afraid to ping me. So thanks so much for your patience. I see it's now time to begin. Grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee, make yourselves comfortable. I'll invite Geshe and we'll get started.
And I had one thing to kind of list there, and that is we also do G Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga on one of the Mondays. I think it's the third Monday of every month. So we do the Gamla Gamma practice with meditation on the three principal aspects of the path.
Nadia.
So greetings and salutations. Can you hear me, everybody? Okay, great.
Yeah, congratulations.
And you can hear Geshe? Okay, awesome. Yes, we are ready to go then.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Congratulations to the congregation.
So first of all, Tashi Dele, greetings to all Dharma friends, and Geshe hopes that all of your cultivation, your practice is going as well as possible.
Oh, 당으로서 느끼는 다루를 주는 레가치야 저저 되나로서 사회야 보도 바자야 버르지야 세하게 체다 레가치야 레스.
So in terms of the activities we're engaged with today, there's several reasons, but one that we can think about is that we're doing these positive activities to be able to activate the positive seeds or imprints within us.
어다 사회야 보고 다 저저 두저 무저 먹어요. 사회 년바요 다 뭐요 받은 거 좀미게 통통하래 대지 세니라 좀벌을 가면 먹어 책이야 레스.
So we have, many, countless hundreds, thousands, whatever, of positive seeds or imprints within us. But we can also see that ourselves and other sentient beings also have many unwholesome imprints. If you want to see what happens when these ripen, you really just need to look at the current state of the world, really.
다 사회 그 바정 연바 사회 연바 세발라 코 공바 다시와 투마메 바니스 다 공바시에서 와이자
So when we talk about these unwholesome or negative seeds within us, there's something to keep in mind. We have been habituated to these unwholesome habits, activities, and so forth from countless rebirths within samsara. So when conditions happen for those unwholesome seeds to ripen, the result is like water moving downstream. It happens very easily and quickly. And so like we can see that when we look at the lives of people we know, and if we're honest with ourselves, most of us will also see the reality of this from our own experience, right? So kare yeah. So whenever we try to do something positive, it's very clear, right? We immediately experience all different kinds of obstacles. And this is the result, right, of those unwholesome imprints ripening. And so it's kind of to deal with this reality and to try and nourish those positive imprints, why day to day, month to month, we engage in our cultivation and our practice, and why on occasions like this, we train in hearing, contemplation, and meditation. It is for this purpose. So a word of advice concerning this. You see it especially in the in Western countries, but Geshe said also amongst like Asian heritage practitioners, that when we get a new practice, we're super enthusiastic about it for like a month, or maybe like at most a year. And then it's just not exciting anymore. And we don't put the same effort into it, and we set it aside. That's actually the reason why we haven't made progress up to this point. That's one of the reasons. Listen. Komba, yeah. Nima. Yeah, Richambochi, ale, losa. Yeah, Yeah, so there is a story that maybe relates to this principle, and the story is of a man who has a house, and the sun is being blocked by a mountain. So there's a mountain between where the sun rises and the house, and this blocks the sun. And so the father of the family, he would climb up the mountain every day, and he would slowly with the spade start to chip away at the top of it. And, you know, most people who look at that kind of behavior, they would think it was a bit nuts, really. Yeah. Apparently, I'm not enthusiastic enough about the story. Sorry. It's really awesome, I promise. And so, of course, people said to him, you know, this is a little bit kind of pointless. I mean, you're going to put all of this effort, and it's not going to bring forth a result at all. So, kind of, what's the point of this? And he said, his answer was, I know that in my lifetime, right? In my lifetime, the bits that I'm going to chip away, it's not going to be enough to address the problem. I know this, actually. But slowly, if I continue working on this and can do a little bit, and my son or my children can do a little bit, then in a few generations, it will make a difference. Yeah. So this is actually the approach we should have to our practice, right? We shouldn't kind of expect dramatic things, right, in the beginning, but we should have the mentality of what we're going to do is we're going to apply ourselves a little bit in a relaxed but a very consistent way. And for most of us, right, this is how we're going to come to a good result. So if you don't have this kind of burst of nervous enthusiasm and then nothing, but instead you make your practice like the current of a river, right, slow but steady, this is what is going to lead you to the results. You know, we hear these stories about these incredible beings like Gyawa and Sapa Kedrup Nosan Gyatso, famously Lord Milarepa, right? But these are kind of like the high exalted beings, rare exceptions. So Geshe was hearing in a teaching from the previous Dzong Rinpoche that actually, even if you just look at the immediate students of Lama Tsongkhapa, there's probably about 100 who were able, from cultivating those instructions, to reach enlightenment. But all of this depends, right, whether the practice is swift or sort of slower upon our application of joyous effort, right? And when we say joyous effort, this is defined as a mind which delights in what is wholesome, which delights in what is virtuous. And it is how much of that that we are able to bring that is going to determine. Of course, you know, joyous effort, very important, but along with this, we also need a measure of faith. We need some wisdom. Many factors come into play here. So these are sort of the preliminary remarks that Geshe wanted to give. And then in terms of our meditation today, Geshe would like to do a meditation on emptiness. I'm just going to see if I can. Okay, great. So just want to see if I can make it so that you can hear the bell. There we go. Okay. So place the body and mind in a calm and relaxed state.
chomeki chowa notola soba jachi bala moji shumba jida bayan royo soba.
Any unhelpful, disturbing thoughts, projections, feelings, just imagine like they are waves on the ocean. When the wind stops blowing, they slowly dissolve back into its calm surface. The body is peaceful, the mind is in a peaceful equanimity, in a neutral state. We can think all of our unhelpful thoughts and feelings, the afflictions, all of these can be connected to the ignorance grasping at the self. Therefore, we need to first understand and recognize this self-grasping ignorance. The subtle ignorance grasping at the self. What does that feel like? How does it operate? And what about the coarser levels of self-grasping? The ignorance grasping at the self in this more subtle layer. Try to observe how it has this conception that things are inherently existent. In terms of the self, this ignorance conceives it as kind of the Lord or controller, completely independent, right? Permanent, not depending upon other factors, other causes and conditions. In this ignorance, in terms of how it relates to the five skandhas, the five aggregates, and thinks that there's some sort of pinpointable essential self that we can locate within those, right? How does this operate? When we try to locate that truly existent self within any part or parts of the body, it is unfindable. When we try to pinpoint it within the various aspects or categories of mind, it is not findable. Because this I or this self is stable, then definitely thoughts, feelings, and so forth are not stable. And the way that these thoughts and feelings operate on the assumption that there is some sort of findable, pinpointable, truly existent self, this is completely mistaken. It's really clear that the difficulties we experience with body and mind, right, that these arise in part from this incorrect assumption that there is something that is going to be truly existent, findable there. Although the mind is not inherently existent, although there is no pinpointable essence, in fact, this lack of inherent existence means that we can bring into the mind qualities like love, compassion, and so forth, and cultivate these qualities to perfection. Let us single-pointedly make supplications and requests to realize this. Yeah. So Geshe just wanted to make a point too about grasping at permanence, right? It's easy to talk about permanence and impermanence and kind of enunciate these words from our mouths. But when we look at our mentality behind how we make plans for the future, right? That's when we can see that grasping at permanence operating in our mind in a tangible way. Otherwise, just saying all compounded phenomena are impermanent, like you can teach even little kids to say that, right? It doesn't mean that there's conviction there. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, di dagzin tagzin. Di marigbadi dagzin marigpa. Yeah. Hakusan. Na lupo di jebuja chogires. And in terms of the ignorance grasping at the self, Geshe said, one thing you can kind of, a way that you can think to sort of see this operating is especially if you have difficulties with your body or something, if someone came to you and said, you can actually switch your mind to a different body, you really think like, I can do this, right? And this will show that ignorance grasping at the self in sort of a tangible way. Yeah, like from the sort of bottom of our heart, we'll have this idea, I can like transfer myself to a better body and maybe even a better mind, right? This shows us grasping at that unitary, inherently existent self. So these teachings and some of these exercises, you can find them in the text Pramanavartika. It's a treatise on valid cognition. On the subtlest level, right, it's how things lack natural or true existence. So let's take an example. If you're in a room where there are 20 or 30 people, and there was an announcement that there's somebody dangerous in this group, be very careful. Perhaps you would be able to identify the dangerous person within that group. So when we talk about something being pinpointable or something being findable, we can think of this example, right? You're trying to locate the dangerous person within this group of 20 or 30 people, and there should be a dangerous person that you can find. So it doesn't have to be necessarily the negative person, like maybe you can think of like the best person, but anyways, you get those characteristics and that person should be findable. And so this ignorance grasping at the self, right, at the very subtle level, it has this assumption that if we look within the five skandhas, within the aggregates, there should be a self that we can locate. But if that truly existent person was findable, right, the more we looked through the various parts of the body or through the various aspects of the mind, the clearer and clearer the sense of that self would become. Like when you're trying to find that person in the crowd. But that is not the case, right? So when we approach emptiness kind of using these sort of ways of thinking, it's not so difficult, right, to come to some sort of understanding if we put some effort into it. So it's said that as the understanding of emptiness unfolds, right, there's kind of at first this sort of startling feeling that, oh, there's nothing there at all. But it's very difficult for us through our reasonings to get to that visceral experience, right? So that's why we need to develop feelings for these various kind of lines of reasoning, right? This is very important. And it's said that when that appearance of nothingness is happening, that, some people, their experience of that is something that is very fearful, right? And for other people, that's not necessarily the case. And then to come to this kind of refined understanding that, yes, there is not that kind of singular, truly existent self, but there is a self there that is a dependent arising. This is kind of like another layer of profundity, isn't it? Yeah, and so related to this then, Geshe said you could call it a story, you could call it like a piece of history, but there is definitely more to say about this, and perhaps if there's time, we can come to that later. If Geshe doesn't forget, and if there's time. So we're going to go to the thing. I'm sorry, I'm just going to get up for a moment to adjust something because I'm afraid that there's this cord that doesn't look very stable. My apologies. Okay, folks, we're good to go. So we will begin with the recitation of the prayers now. And we'll go a little bit quickly to save some time. Tumba chomden de dejin sheba dra chomba yanda ba zobe sanje sheba dang sha su demba dewar sheba jiden chemba chebu duwe kalo
kalo jorwa la na me ba la dang mi nam gi tumba sangye chom den de pe jawa sha kya tu ba la cha se lo che de kya su chi ho Tumba chonden de tishin sheba jachomba yandaba zobe sanje reba dan shabzu demba dewa sheba shiden chemba chebu dewe kalo jorwa lana meba lada mi namgi tumba sange chonden de pe jawa shakya tuba la chase lo chede kyabsu chi ho Tumba chonden de tishin sheba jachomba yandaba zobe sanje reba Dang Shabzu Demba Dewa Sheba Jiden Chemba Chebu Dewe Kalo Joro Lana Meba Lada Mi Nangi Tumba Sanje Chomden De Pe Jawa Shakya Tuba Lai Chazelo Chede Kyabsu Chi Ho Mandala Saji Pegi Joshi Meto Chan Rira Linshi Nidi Gyamba Di Sangye Shinto Mide Bowa Ge Joku Nanda Shinla Cheba Sho Idam Guru Ratna Mendala Kam Niryata Yami Refuge with bodhicitta. So Geshe said that the mandala offering is really a very beautiful way to practice generosity because it's very easy to do it on the imagination level. As we offer the mandala, we imagine we also offer the service of our body, all of our enjoyments or material possessions, as well as our roots of virtue. In this way, it becomes powerful. And if you add the thought, through offering my body, my material possessions, and my roots of virtue, may I somehow become of benefit to sentient beings. May these things become of benefit to sentient beings. This can be very powerful. So Geshe said that kind of doing the visualization of the mandala along with these aspirations, although we do this in the context of sutra teachings like this, we can see this as like a window or a door into a tantric view as well. Chedon sugi chenam la jangcho bardu dani chapsu chi dagi chenyen jibe sunam gi drola penchir sangi droba sho Chedon sugi chenam la jangcho bardu dani chapsu chi dagi chenyen jibe sunam gi drola penchir sangi droba sho Chedon sugi chenam la jangcho bardu dani chasu chi dagi chenen jibe sunam gi drola penche sange droba sho. So not too much talking, just immediately to our meditation, relaxing the mind and body, we are going to place our mindfulness and awareness upon the breath. The body is peaceful and the fundamental mind, its nature of equanimity, this is also peaceful. And so then this mind, which is now like a perfect field, right? It's been perfectly cultivated. This is where we can place the seeds of love, compassion, and bodhicitta and bring these forth as our motivation.
송지 주바 때는 매와 이자 센지시 가리나 요 갈래 매와서 토르 센지에 때 가리나 갈래 고 다시 맞지 되는 로 토르
It is precisely because the mind itself lacks inherent existence that the faults, the unwholesome aspects of the mind can be completely cleared away, and that the positive mental qualities can be fully brought forth and perfected.
다 들으지는 다 간주 다 셀 뽑아도 다 뽑아 첨부 니빠 첨부 요바 다 들으자 소소소소로 또 가레스.
So thinking in this way, right, the idea is that we begin the session with an empowered mind, with a courageous mind of confidence.
다 시도 리 스타 첨부 가가생 다베리 손지 셈베리 손지거리 센지 유조를 차대와데 차여바데
So one of the, main important pronouncements of the Buddha was that not only human beings, but indeed all sentient beings possess the potential for liberation, possess the potential to bring forth bodhicitta, possess, right, the Buddha nature, the potential for enlightenment. And because every single one of all the 6 types of sentient beings have these potentials within them, this is why, even down to the tiniest insect, we want to try to avoid harming them. And this is where the attitude of ahimsa, or non-harmfulness, arises from. So this is, one of the most sort of important sort of new pronouncements that came through the teaching of the Buddha, one of the important advice that he gave us. If we think in this way kind of very fully, it is powerful enough to help us clear away negative, evil minds along with their imprints. That's how powerful this vision can be. And remember that even if we bring forth this full realization, wisdom realizing emptiness, as refined and profound as that is, if we don't have it moistened by these minds of love, compassion, and bodhicitta, it can only get rid of the afflictive obscurations, not the knowledge obscurations fully. So that's important to keep in mind. So when we think of the shinjib, which are sometimes called the knowledge obscurations, sometimes called the wisdom obscurations, I like to translate them as knowledge obscurations. Hopefully you see from this context why. So Geshe said, you can look at those as kind of the latencies or the imprints left behind by the afflictions. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama has often reflected, that we've had, countless scholars in the land of the Aryas in India who composed very profound texts. And following that, many, many scholars in the land of snows in Tibet who composed many, many texts. But none of those texts exceeds the profundity, exceeds the quality of this Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra. And so we could say that the sort of main object to be, the main, Geshe has itchy nose, I think. So it's not embarrassing to have an itchy nose, is it? Happens to me all the time. He says it's like a cat waiting to pounce. It's a pretty overweight cat if that's the case. Anyways, so the main object to be explained is bodhicitta. The main object to be explained is bodhicitta of this text. So we are going to jump right into where we left off. So I just want, for folks who are joining, I am using the Stephen Batchelor translation of the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra. We are in chapter 3, adopting the spirit of awakening, and I believe we're still on page 10.
Mail
Yabu como son kebardi danso yena? Yeah. Yeah. Chaya, like Nanso Lupodi, man chaya, lucha. Right. So Geshe said that when he glossed the verses from last week, he was kind of doing it in terms of like, we're reading this as the practitioner and we're thinking like, may I be able to provide medicine to those who need it? May I be able to provide water to those suffering from thirst, food to those suffering from hunger, and so forth. But Geshe said that the kind of ultimate bodhisattva mind, for lack of a better word, is it's like you want yourself to transform into that water to give to the thirsty people, to transform into that medicine to give to the sick people, to transform into that food, and so forth. Chagides. Yeah. And not only may I provide a wish-fulfilling jewel to others, but may I become wish-fulfilling jewels for every single sentient being. So, when we look at this text, one important thing to understand is that even in the initial stages of cultivation, bodhisattvas themselves are not able to actualize these things for sentient beings. But just bringing forth the thought, the wish to do this, it has an incredible impact upon the mind. Because, speaking practically, we are amongst the different types of beings, we are a human being. We can't just kind of like snap our fingers and literally become medicine, literally become a wish-fulfilling jewel, and so forth, right? So these are aspirational. Yeah. And so then, we say that, may a wish-fulfilling trees, may I become wish-fulfilling trees in each of the hell realms, right? This follows in I think, the final chapter of this text. Obviously, like, we're not going to actually So obviously, like, we can't actually do that, at least in our state right now, but this is also aspirational. Right. Yeah. So Geshe said the other thing also that we want to think about maybe as our topic is bodhicitta, right? We speak of the 3 types of bodhicitta. So most of you are probably familiar with this, right? The king-like bodhicitta, the captain-like bodhicitta, and the shepherd-like bodhicitta. So the king-like bodhicitta is the one that can actually happen logically. So this is a point of debate, Geshe was saying at the monasteries. This is the one that can actually happen logically. The shepherd-like and the boatman-like, this can't actually happen in reality, but they're powerful aspirationally.
강가르시에 토야지 용기야. 손주지 세시비 깔라.
Yeah. So the king-like bodhicitta misuyana diketugereta. So
라마스 야시에 여보잖아.
yeah. So the king-like bodhicitta, right? If people really bring forth the necessary cultivation, this is something that is actually achievable, right? It's an actually achievable thing.
다 생절로 초와 첨부 나 비jel은 만다와 또 첨부 초와서나 아니 지지도 다 있잖아. 손주지 세. 아니 다 저기도 다 손주지 세 대지 디바체로.
But when we're trying to develop that feeling of bodhicitta, especially from the aspect of that wish to help to benefit sentient beings, right? The shepherd-like bodhicitta and the captain-like bodhicitta are some of the they're more powerful ways to think about this. So apparently I'm allowed to say it. I thought that would sort of be overstepping, but I was just saying to Geshe, I did notice we had some new faces, so I thought maybe people don't actually know what's the difference between a king-like bodhicitta, a shepherd-like bodhicitta, and a captain-like bodhicitta, right? So the king-like bodhicitta, so Geshe said, well, just you tell them then, Kedrip. So yeah, I'll tell you guys, and Geshe can have a break for a couple minutes. So the king-like bodhicitta is thinking, I am going to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to get to enlightenment first. And then once I've achieved it, I'm going to bring over as many sentient beings as I can, right? The captain-like bodhicitta, it's I am going to reach enlightenment together with all sentient beings. Like the captain on a ship, we all reach the other shore together. The shepherd-like bodhicitta, which is the most powerful one, is I'm going to get all sentient beings to enlightenment first, like the shepherd is behind and his sheep get to the pasture first, and then I'm going to certify to enlightenment. So that's the difference. Zio. Yeah. And so the way of thinking for the sharpest faculty disciple, Geshe is explaining, is this shepherd-like bodhicitta. This mind kind of arises, I want them to get there before I do, from this unbearable sort of mercy, concern, love, and compassion for sentient beings. That is why it is such a powerful mind. So then there's a story, and Geshe can't remember the name of the Lama, but he was widely considered to be a greatly realized being, right? And then he was approaching the time of his death. And so his disciples had gathered at his bedside as he was approaching. And he said, there's one thing that I wasn't really able to do. There's one regret that I have. And so, his disciples, many of whom were lamas in their own right, they were concerned and thought maybe there was something with his practice that he hadn't been able to achieve. So they asked him, what's disturbing you? He said that when I was dedicating the merits of my practice, I continually dedicated to be able to be reborn in the lowest realm of hell to bring maximum benefit to sentient beings. But unfortunately, I've seen as I approach death that there's many signs of going to a pure land, and this is not what I aspired for. So that is the power of these sort of aspirational prayers or thoughts. So we shall leave the discussion there and we shall turn to our text now. Right. So also just to kind of conceptualize this, because Geshe said he's not sure if he mentioned it clearly enough last time, right? Within this chapter, we have the various of the 7 limbs, and a lot of these aspirational things are actually dedications of the merit to these aspirations. And remember that with the power of the dedication, some of the merit remains until enlightenment. It's likened to a drop of water put into a great ocean. which means that as long as that ocean does not dry up, some aspect of that drop, some essence of that drop of water is going to be remain accessible to you.
다 개와 다 디시 뒤뒤 니바 추지 마도 매바 이나 이때도 수지 마도 바데 대화로 노시 추야 계속 뒤와서 된도도 시나.
If we know how to do this and dedicate properly, that means that even if it was just kind of a short period of virtuous practice, through this dedication, some of the essence of that is going to carry us through with the things that we need, positive rebirths, enjoyments, and so forth, all the way until enlightenment. It says very clearly within the sutras, pronouncements of the Buddha himself, that when one rejoices single-pointedly, an essence of those virtues remains without exhaustion until enlightenment. Yeah, and so this also, this pronouncement of the Buddha, the sutra also contains this analogy of, the drop of water in the ocean. Yep, so in this way, we turn to the text. Right. So Geshe said that one of the main aspects of this text of the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra is that it gives a very complete explanation of the 6 paramitas or perfections. Some of the chapters are named after particular paramitas, but you'll maybe notice that, for example, there's not a generosity chapter, but many of the teachings of generosity are contained within this part of the text. That's it. So Geshe is reading verse 11 on page 10. Without any sense of loss, I shall give up my body and enjoyments, as well as all my virtues of the 3 times, for the sake of benefiting all. So to actually be able to do this, Geshe said, for most of us, we're not in a reality or a material situation where we could kind of literally give away everything that we own and still be okay. So it's kind of like we're wishing for something that might not be possible. So although we may not do this practically, if in the context of this as a prayer, we have this as a wish, as a thought that we are holding in our mind, this can be a really transformative mind training. So Depa Tandawa Maomba tu so yeah. So Geshe said that this is sort of the most powerful form of generosity. So in terms of the different types of generosity one can do, this is the ultimate. So you're giving up your body, your physical person, as well as your enjoyments. This means all of your material possessions, as well as the virtues of the 3 times, meaning past, present, and future, This is the ultimate practice of generosity. But Geshe said, there's ways of thinking about this, that it's not so impossible. Like giving up our body doesn't mean like literally giving up our body and life, or, giving an eyeball or something. We can give our body, in service to another. So a practice of generosity using the body can be as simple as this: when you're meeting with your family, when you're meeting with friends, also when you're out and about in the world, be aware not to have a dour expression all the time. Try to give others a smile to lift them up. This is a practice of generosity using the body. So if we use our body in this way to give a smile, a pleasant expression, right? If we use our speech to say gentle and encouraging words, you can see all of these as practices of generosity using the body. So you can see that also, we mentioned about some difficult points, but there's also doable things, right, that we can understand from this text. Rosuke. Verse number 12, by giving up all, sorrow is transcended, and my mind will realize the sorrowless state. It is best that I now give everything to all beings in the same way as I shall at death. So a little bit of a heavy one on first glance. It's kind of, it's giving up everything to all beings, just like, we leave everything behind at death. That's like a pretty high bar. Yeah. So what it's saying, one thing we can understand from this verse, Geshe is saying, is that we're eventually going to have to give up everything anyway at the time of death, right? We're not going to be able to take it all with us. So maybe we should try to give up some of it when we can now. That's one thing we can understand. So, if we don't sort of hoard so that we have all of these things when we die that we have to leave behind anyway, but, with discernment, we practice some generosity now. This can become seeds for liberation, seeds for arising bodhicitta, seeds for enlightenment. And so what it's saying here is sorrow is transcended in the sorrowless state. What this is saying is that, through this practice of giving without attachment, this can become a cause for liberation, right? That's the sorrowless state. Yeah, so I have to say the Nyangin Le Depa, it's sorrowless kind of works. Nyangin Le Depa is kind of a state. Nyangin, sorry. Bad pronunciation. Nyangin is this state of lamentation or this state of sorrow. Yeah. Sometimes nyangin is understood as the afflictions themselves, right? Because the afflictions are usually what disturb us and cause us sorrow. So that sorrowless state, this is the Nyangin Le Depa. Sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit of Geshe. So this is the Nyangin Le Depa now, Geshe is saying. So the Le Depa is that state beyond sorrow, right? So if we practice in this way, this can become a cause for that state beyond sorrow, which is what? Moksha, liberation. Yeah. So it is best that I now give everything to all beings in the same way that I shall at death. So in the same way that I shall at death means, right, we're leaving everything behind, right? We might not even be able to decide where it goes. So before we reach that point, why not give some of this to all sentient beings? Then maybe it can be of benefit. So just to be clear, Geshe is not advising that people give everything away right now, right? We have to give what the meaning of the verse is, but then you may ask, okay, like how does someone like myself understand this from like a doable point of view? So longchiden so?
야, 뭐뭐도 저저도 보고도 대지 타발이 쇼리야 티야가 타는 도나.
Kandis yartigiris.
아니 뭐들 소소지지 니zo는 냐마 저기 사트니 사티.
Ale ngembate ale gaya di longchiro nga longchireta. So Geshe said that, you know, one thing that you could do is, you know, and you can start with people close to you, like your family members. So especially if there's younger children, right? If you could introduce them to wholesome things, to engaging in acts of kindness, to engaging in other causes of liberation, and you can reward them with gifts and things like this, right? This would be an example of kind of practicing with one's wealth.
다 배변 너무 지가 통어 도선되는 디빈 하고 살아. 다 보고 가시가 봐. 얘는 보고 가시 선바 좀 보지네. 말로 빠지 한다고 배도 지한다고 드릴 가지 손은 냠바 뭐 대반다고. 다는 어시방 냠바 지는 냠바 뉴한테 한다고 드릴.
Yeah, so Geshe recently saw something about a Tibetan family that sort of tried to practice this. You know, they observed carefully the conduct of their children, and when the children were kind to others, when they were going out of their way to help others and so forth, then, you know, when time for gift giving came, they would get a more substantial gift. But if the kids were behaving poorly, were unkind to others and so forth, they would not get as nice a gift. So we want to kind of practice these little small incremental things, right, that are going to lead us to the state of generosity. Geshe just saying that, you know, don't think that he's just saying, give it all up right now, right away, right? We have to go in increments. So, you know, it's important also to think about, just related to what was said before, about the positive influence we can have on our family. Remember the story of the king, right, who didn't have time to receive teachings from the Buddha. So his wife would go and receive teachings from the Buddha, and then every night she would explain what she had heard, right? This was her way of leading him in a positive direction. Yeah, so this is, you know, we say they're stories, but these are historical accounts within the scriptures. No. Oh, Dagi Luce, yeah. By having given this body up for the pleasure of all living beings, by killing, abusing, and beating it, may they always do as they please. Sorry, I remember. Sorry, when we did this, yeah, Geshe was like, this is a really tough one, isn't it? He was remembering, and I was just saying, I remember how this happened. We did this verse one time, and someone came to me afterwards and said, you just undid about 10 years of therapy, they told me. Yeah, so it's a challenging one. So Geshe said first the caveat, right? I mean, we need to be realistic. For most of us, this is not going to be healthy, right? This is the mode of practice for somebody who is already at a very high level of realization.
Yeah.
So the idea behind this verse, though, right, is that if one has really gotten to the state where one has offered oneself and one's body for the benefit of all sentient beings, then if they do the things explained in this verse, right, like make it a source of jest or blame, that's not going to disturb us, right? Because we've already offered it in their service for however they please. So, as an ordinary person, for folks like ourselves, what essence of this verse can we take that is practical? Well, when somebody says an unpleasant word, or somebody gives you an unpleasant expression, just think, let them do as they will, and practice the patience of not retaliating. And so Geshe also wants to be clear, what we're trying to address here is that instinctual response of anger, Geshe is not advocating that if there's really been an injustice, you explain to the person why they were wrong. He's not saying that one shouldn't do that, but we're talking about this immediate reaction out of anger. Yes. And so Geshe said Geshe said the following verse, it's very much in a similar vein, so I'll just read that out. Although they may play with my body and make it a source of jest and blame, because I have given it to them, what is the use of holding it dear? So verse 13 and verse 14 really expressing the same thing here.
Yeah.
So often people are joking about it, right? And if we do it about ourselves, maybe not so difficult, but if others make fun of our body and so forth, right? This can be something that is painful or causes us hurt. But if one is thinking that I've already offered this in service to all sentient beings and do what they will, right? Then this can make it easier to not retaliate. So in a capsule, you can practice these very difficult verses in 3 ways, right? In sort of the easy way, the middling way, and the complete way. So verse 15, therefore I shall let them do anything to it that does not cause them any harm. And when anyone encounters me, may it never be meaningless for them. So for those of you who care about these things, it's actually not him in the Tibetan, it's gender neutral, so it is for them. Right? Yes. Yeah. So whatever they're doing, may it, even if it is something that is unpleasant for me, as long as it is not harmful to them and brings them happiness, may it be so. So also, Geshe just sharing that he's told stories, right, about the importance of sentient beings connecting with the Bodhisattva. So the Bodhisattva, he or she is always seeking that positive connection, right? But a connection that might start as something negative is better than no connection at all. So even sometimes a negative connection is good. So there's a story of a local Lama, in the past in Tibet. And whenever he would give teachings and so forth, most of the people from that place would gather around. But there was one person in that village who he was never able to really connect with, who he felt kind of didn't like him or something. Yeah. And so to kind of address this complete ambivalence of this person or this lack of connection, the Lama knew that they were an angry person. And so he thought, I need some sort of connection. So what he did is he took his horse and he completely stomped the field where they had just recently sort of planted some crop. But the weird thing was, normally this person was like really angry, and something much less significant than that would have been enough to upset him. But in this case, he just found the whole thing sort of absurd, that I plant this field and here's like this old Lama on a horse stomping all over it. How weird is that? And he kind of had a humorous response to it. Yeah, and so actually, that was also a little bit too of an ambivalent response, and the Lama thought there's still not a connection here, neither a positive one or a negative one, and he had to leave that place the next day, and he thought, this is a regret that I have, that this work of having a connection with him was not completed. So if we think about relationships over lifetimes, for a true bodhisattva, there might just not be conditions to have a positive relationship there. But if there's some sort of relationship, even in the initial stages that is negative, that connection has been made, and then in subsequent lifetimes, the bodhisattva will be able to bring benefit to that being. So that's not an easy thing to understand or practice, and Geshe said many of these things he just wants to clear up for himself, right? For himself, this is very difficult to practice as well.
Oh, this one?
Tashua, losa. Yeah.
Dala mini
Dalam, yeah.
Dala mini konta ke choga tebi session teni ta de ki tegen de vije chipta de chipareso.
So Geshe said that verse number 16 really in the same vein, the same theme. If in those who encounter me a faithful or an angry thought arises, may that eternally become the source for fulfilling all their wishes.
다 된다. 다 당긴 것한테 떼서 말이야. 지지나. 당긴 것한테 다 소소가 된다.另外一个是的. 뭐 얘는 내비 된다. 또 노용만 로 쇼. 또 뭐디가?
Yep.
다 단다 뛰게 단다니 단다 들어가로.
Yeah. So Geshe said like a little bit of a nuance in terms of the verses, because we see that in verse 15 it specifies that does not cause them any harm. So they can connect in a way that's unpleasant for me, but as long as it does not cause them any harm, may it be so. In verse 16, the nuance is, even if they have an angry or harmful thought that arises, that may be harmful initially, but may it eventually become a source of connection where one can benefit them. So 17, same vein, Geshe is saying, may all who say bad things to me or cause me any other harm, and those who mock and insult me have the fortune to fully awaken. So it's really really praying that whatever connection we have, whatever activities that unfold between us, may those become a cause of that being's enlightenment. May I be a protector for those without one, a guide for all travelers on the way. May I be a bridge, a boat, and a ship for all those who wish to cross the water. Again, So Geshe is saying, to be a protector for those without one, to be a guide for travelers on the way. Geshe said we can think of, so many people these days having to leave their homes, be a bridge, a boat, and a ship. These are maybe things that we are not actually able to do, but we bring these forth as a thought. So So, and also for the bodhisattva, they might not have application of these things, but these beneficial wishes are arising naturally as a thought. So we so then we can see that we said, we can't actually become these things, but we see that that's what the bodhisattva is praying for, right? To actually transform into a bridge, a boat, and a ship, as we discussed earlier.
li tenye la li to na mamende la mamende nemande la nemata dana li che trende ba kanyu trende jo shu.
So number 19, may I be an island for those who seek one and a lamp for those desiring light. May I be a bed for all those who wish to rest and a slave for all who want a slave. So this is usually translated as servant nowadays, right? This is an old translation. Yeah. It's a yeah. So Geshe said these are wishes to become actually places, right? To become a pleasant place for beings to rest, and also once again to become these objects like a lamp for those who are in darkness. And also to become, Geshe said here it's translated as a bed, but in Tibetan this word has the connotation of like the bed with the mattress, the sheets, the blanket, all the things for sleeping. And Geshe said also, may I become a servant, right, for all of those beings who need one, to be able to perform whatever is needed for sentient beings. Verse number 20, may I be a wishing jewel, a magic vase, powerful mantras, and great medicine. May I become a wish-fulfilling tree and a cow of plenty for the world. Yeah, I know, but the bachu ginesu dang iji norbu ginesu di duashwa inji nangla kongsu di nishu. So Geshe is just asking that. So the numbering in the Tibetan and the English is a little bit different. Long story short, Bachelor put like one verse in the Tibetan into two separate verses, but I just confirmed with Geshe that we are right, because we are the wish-fulfilling cow and so forth. So Geshe said these are all objects that can provide the wishes, provide the aspirations and happiness to sentient beings. When we talk about a wish-fulfilling jewel, a magic vase, these powerful mantras are manifest things that people need. This wish-fulfilling tree and a cow of plenty. These are all things that are continuously going to provide sentient beings with their enjoyments. Yeah. 21, just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. Kari de ishi norbugineso de namka ale. So verse number 21, just like space and the great elements such as earth may always support the life of all boundless creatures. This is a verse that His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama considers particularly important and that he often uses as dedication. Yeah, so Geshe said that ultimately space is something which we consider is abiding for an extremely long time, and so we are namka takpa marirwa. Yeah. And Geshe said that space is permanent, although these elements such as the earth and so forth are not. But by equating them with space, we are hoping that they abide for an extremely long time to bring that benefit to sentient beings. Yeah. So it's a prayer, that these things that support the life, that support the comfort of sentient beings, that, they will abide, maybe can't abide permanently like space, but the idea is they abide as long as possible to continuously provide everything they need. Verse 22, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. And Geshe said you'll recognize this one, right? This is another very powerful dedication prayer that many of us will see in practice. So Geshe said that reach until the ends of space, right? We understand this as metaphorical, right? Just that when we think about sentient beings, they are so numerous, there are so many of them that they are unfathomable. Like just if we try to think of where the furthest reach of space is. Yeah. But for all of them, for that sort of unfathomable number of sentient beings, may I also be the source of life. We can think of this. May I take any aspect that is needed to lead them to that state of enlightenment in which they are completely free of suffering. That's so Geshe said that these verses that we're covering now, these can be considered as the preparatory verses for receiving the Bodhisattva vows, right? So it helps us bring forth that motivation. And so then when we come to this next verse, beginning just as the previous Sugatas, this is the verse to actually receive these engaging vows. So Geshe said he feels like it wouldn't be good to stop here, so he just wants to at least read this verse out. Yeah. Just as the previous Sugatas gave birth to an awakening mind, and just as they successively dwelt in the Bodhisattva practices, likewise, for the sake of all that lives, do I give birth to an awakening mind, and likewise shall I too successively follow the practices. So Geshe said these verses are the verses that one can recite for actually receiving the engaging bodhisattva vows. So just as the previous Sugatas, so that means what Geshe is saying here, this means that this kind of commitment was undertaken by all of those bodhisattvas who became Buddhas in the past. That's what that's saying. So first they gave rise to the wishing bodhicitta, then the wishing bodhicitta with the promise, then the engaging bodhisattva vows. This is how they proceeded. And then they engaged in the various practices and cultivations. I am going to do the same as those bodhisattvas did. Yeah. So Geshe said that, we can recite these verses as a way to receive and renew the bodhisattva vows ourselves. But in order to do this, what we want to do is visualize Buddha Shakyamuni, jewel all in one, or Buddha Shakyamuni surrounded by bodhisattvas in the space in front of us. So we can think that we are in kind of like a vast assembly. Gonda, Jangshub Sempadinso, Konso Tsigdinso Kyogi, Renganyamdu Kyogi, sorry. So what we can do, Geshe said, is you can imagine like when vows are transmitted in a great monastery and the preceptor is saying something and you can repeat it. You can imagine in this case, right, that Buddha Shakyamuni is saying these words to you and that you repeat them as a way of renewing the bodhisattva vows. So verse 23 is setting us up for what we're committing to, is what all of those beings who were bodhisattvas and became enlightened in the past, that's the mind that they brought forth. This is the cultivation that they engaged in. And so verse 24 is just like they did, I too am going to bring forth that mind and engage in that cultivation. And that starts, of course, realistically. We do the stuff that we can in the beginning, and we continue to work on ourselves so that we become capable of doing more, just as they did in the future. So starting, with the small scope practices of the Lam Rim, identifying where we have a lack of stability in our cultivation, and then identifying those gaps right through the middling and great scopes as well. Right. We can think as, the commitment that we have now, it's like a sand castle that is very vulnerable to the waves. So what we want to do is we want to try to make it firmer, put some plaster on it or something to make it a little bit more stable. If yours is already super stable and not like a sand castle, Geshe apologizes for underestimating you, but for many of us, that's how it is. And then having taken this, then some verses come forth to bring forth joy at having made the commitment. So 25, in order to further increase it from now on, those with discernment who have lucidity seized, who have lucidly seized an awakening mind in this way, should highly praise it in the following manner. So this is saying, like, praising wisdom, praising something intelligent that we have done, which is that, today I brought forth a mind that was wise for once, and I did this excellent thing of making this commitment. So what did I do today that is worthy of this praise? What I had not done before really arose the bodhicitta and took the vows and practices. And why is this something that is praiseworthy? Because this mind and these commitments that I have brought forth, they will become a source of the happiness of all sentient beings, both myself and others. And so useful to get into the habit of renewing these bodhisattva vows. Geshe has heard one Lama who said that if one is able to renew one's bodhisattva vows at the moment of passing, there's absolutely no chance that one can be reborn in the lower realms in the subsequent lifetime, right? That door to the lower realms is closed through the power of renewing those bodhisattva vows. So if that's one of the benefits, right? What an amazing profit we come to through engaging in this practice. And so, to really do this properly, what Geshe is saying is especially verses 23 and 24, just as the previous Sugatas, and likewise for the sake of all that lives, we want to repeat these 3 times. And the most powerful way to do this is we imagine that the Buddha visualized in front of us recites this, and we repeat it back, and that we do this, receive it, and repeat it back 3 times. And of course, when we meditate on this joy and this rejoicing, Geshe said, perhaps not everybody, but most of us may have received the Bodhisattva vows before. So we rejoice in that if we've received them and something has degenerated, right, that is now repaired, that is now restored. And also when we're doing this, remember the contents of the first chapter of this holy text, which talked about the amazing benefits of the Bodhi mind and the Bodhisattva vows. So, just to remember that like this engaging bodhicitta with the vows, right? This is preceded, right? Before that, you have the intention, the aspiring or wishing bodhicitta with the promise. And so then Geshe said he shared it in previous lessons, right? This bodhicitta, aspirational bodhicitta or wishing bodhicitta with the promise, it has 8 points, 4 points to prevent degeneration in this lifetime, 4 points to prevent degeneration in subsequent lifetimes that we want to keep in mind.
Sorry,
Chugedang. So yeah. So then in terms though of the engaging bodhicitta with the full bodhisattva vows, of course, it's not going to be easy to keep or even know all of these right from the beginning, but slowly we want to familiarize ourselves first with the 18 root transgressions related to these vows, and secondly, with the 46 secondary transgressions. But one of the qualities of the bodhisattva vows is that in the vast majority of cases, even if we have a contravention of one of these 18 root infractions, if we engage in this practice of receiving the vows again, like was just explained, that this can be purified and restored. So, of course, if there is a Lama who's able to serve as preceptor, it's good to receive them for the first time or to renew them when we can in front of a preceptor. But also, if that's not possible, then we can do, as Geshe explained, this visualization of the Buddha and receive them in this way. Yeah. So, of course, there's many different benefits of the Bodhisattva vows, right? These are explained extensively, but really one of the main benefits of this engaging bodhicitta with the vows is that when one has taken this and has this in mind, then whatever one does, whether working, sleeping, eating, walking, talking, during all of these activities, it is as if there is a rain of merits that is falling. So when we talk about cultivating virtue, right, amassing merit, these are not easy things, but we can see that if this practice is done very well, it does become quite easy. Right. And so the verse that follows, so we're stopping after 25, I believe. The verse that follows 26 is, having done all of this, right, now our life has been able to have meaning. Now it is very fruitful. Yeah, so Geshe said we will stop here today because we're at the end of our time. We didn't get to gloss Gampopa this time, but don't worry, it's still there. We will do it whenever we have time. So we're going to dedicate the merits. And of course, as I always say, I know some folks are busy. If you need to move on with your day after the dedication, please do. If you would like to hang out for question and answer, you are most welcome.
Changju Zemjo Rinpoche Maje Panam Jeju Rechi Chewa Nyamba Mepa Yang Gone Gondu Bewa Shu Tongni Tawa Rinpoche Maje Panam Jeju Rechi Chewa Nyamba Mepa Yang Gone Gondu Pewa Sho Jampe Bao Jigdar Gemba Tong Kundu Zambo Deyang Dejin De Da Gungi Jesu Da Lo Chir Gewa Di Da Tamshe Ratu Ngo Dusun Shepe Gyawa Tamshe Gi Ngowa Gangla Chokdu Ngaba De Dagi Gewe Tsawa Dikun Kyong Zambo Jeji Rabdu Ngowa Gi Gangri Rawe Kowe Jinkam De Pendang Dewa Malu Jongwe Ne Shenre Ziwan Tenzin Jazo Yi Shabe Side Bardu Tengyo Chi.
소소 경고 사페니 바도 손이 쇼지 셰가 샬라라 때네 아니 로리 주 가발리나 요다 좀 봐도 이지가 다야 바자세 손바좀 보쇼 그다지.
So through the merits that we have accumulated during this practice, as well as the blessings of the words of bodhicitta we have contemplated, through the power of this, may all 6 types of sentient beings be able to give rise to minds of love and compassion. And in this way, may there be peace and happiness.
네, 가와이 나요 리주는 리치간에 센지간 간이 지나요 봐. 공시와 노지 파신을 강가하게 답하게 가리 좀 봐도 이지가 소리가 된다.
In any place where there is suffering, where people are beset with difficulties of body and mind, may these be cleared away through the power of them bringing forth minds of love and compassion. In terms of all of our study, practice, and activities related to those, may these be able to be brought to fruition just as we wish. So we'll pause there. So then we welcome questions from folks. Would anyone like to start off?
You should not be able to unmute.
If folks are shy, Dave, maybe there's something on socials or something.
Just many expressions of thanks and
That's kind.
and rejoicing about bodhicitta, actually, yeah.
Wonderful. Oh, I do see one. Is it Greg?
Yeah, go
Greg,
ahead,
I see your hand. Go ahead. Did I get the name correctly?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh.
He went away. Okay. Maybe I scared him away. Sorry.
No, great. He's still here. Just he put his
Maybe he
hand down.
just doesn't have a question. No, that's okay too.
Sure.
So Geshe said, no worries. Oh, Greg, are you there now?
I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm mouse challenged today. I tried to take myself off mute and it didn't work.
It's all good. No worries. That day in my life, honestly. So go ahead.
I was just wondering if you could clarify. You mentioned 8 techniques or 8 methods of, I think, sustaining bodhicitta or keeping it from declining. Is that right?
Yeah. Are you thinking of the aspiring bodhicitta, the 4 points preventing degeneration in this life, and the 4 points in the next life?
Yes, I was wondering if you could just clarify that or point me to the point in the text because I missed last week if it was discussed.
No worries, no worries. Yeah. Nganso di munsem kelen dang nyamdu di rwa netsu ji tsewa di trola madroya netsu ji tsewa jema trola madroya dinso ji karje sa. Matok jen kawatagre sa.
Maybe lor chemo the nipo to kangani garo.
Yeah. So Geshe said that he doesn't have them at the top of his head. We did cover them last week, so you could listen to that. But Geshe said they're in the Lamrim texts for sure. So if you look them up in the Lamrim Chemo in the Great Treatise, I believe they're also available in the middle length treatise.
Do you recall which section? Or is there a recording for last week?
Yeah, there is a recording for last week.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah,
If we can just put that into the chat, I can look it up that way. That would be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So but Geshe said he's now remembering some of them. So one of the main ones is not abandoning a sentient being, never making the decision to abandon any sentient being. And the other one is to Jangchugisem Sungwa, right. And the other one is to recollect the mind of bodhicitta 3 times in the day and 3 times in the night. That's another one of them. Yeah. So those are the ones that Geshe can remember at the moment. But Greg, if you look in the section on bodhicitta, right, that will be the section to look at. So in the Lamrim, you're looking at the great scope. And I believe the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. Yeah. Another, so Geshe is remembering most of them now. So another one, so to prevent the degeneration of the bodhicitta in future lifetimes, not deceiving one's abbot, one's preceptor, and the bodhisattvas about, so not deceiving them. Yeah. Is it like a konso semchuk chaya gineso malaba? Another one is not to discourage those who have brought forth a bodhisattva intention and are working to benefit others. Yeah. Geshe thinks this one he's not so sure about, but he thinks the other one may be to, as much as possible, guide others towards the bodhisattva path. But anyways, you'll find this in the great scope section of the Lamrim, where you have the section on the bodhisattva vows. And I just wanted to say, the Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise, because I know it's like 3 volumes, it might be, not easy to get or whatever for folks. That's available on archive.org. So the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa. Oh, right. Not deceiving sentient beings with pretense or guile. This may be another one of these trainings. And so Geshe thinks that he has now given the 4 of preventing degeneration in future lifetimes. In terms of them not degenerating in this lifetime, Geshe said he's going on memory, so you'll have to check. But the first is recollecting the benefits of bodhicitta, he believes. And so the kewajema manyamya drosama. Ale, lasa. Yeah. And not abandoning beings is another. Loso. And recollecting the bodhicitta 3 times in the day and 3 times in the night. Kewa jema dan kewa di pek go tom suanga. So layadi. So den so kewa jema re tanda kewa di re lasma. Okay. Di angger sungdang sebuchene. I'm asking Geshe to say them again in the 2 divisions, this lifetime and next lifetime, because I can see that he remembers, but I just want to get them out there clear for folks. So we're going to go through them again. Sorry, folks, for bearing with us, but maybe this will help you remember. Yeah. Say di. So preventing degeneration this lifetime, recollecting the benefits, not abandoning any sentient being.
쇼주지 세
Sen sum sasum.
쇼주지 세 시와디 요네용도 시와디 송
Yangsi chenya.
Yeah.
Sen sum nima sum
다
proadir.
되고 대지지
Yeah,
대지지 세서 내마송
Yeah, so recollecting the bodhicitta 3 times in the day and 3 times in the night. Shipati. So the last one he can't remember. Kewajema? Yeah, Kewajema? Yeah. So to prevent degeneration in future lifetimes, the first, not deceiving one's abbot, preceptor, bodhisattvas, and so forth. Not discouraging those engaged in the bodhisattva practices or discouraging them from aspiring the bodhicitta mind. And he thinks, Geshe said he's not sure, you'll have to check. He thinks the next one is as much as possible to guide others towards the bodhisattva path. And the fourth one is essentially not deceiving or cheating sentient beings, but Geshe thinks specifically pretense and guile are mentioned here. Is avoiding things like alcohol in there? No. That's related to the vows of individual liberation, not the bodhisattva vows. That's okay. So Geshe said he realizes there's 2 points he wasn't able to recollect clearly. One of them may be about engaging in accumulation and purification, but he's not sure. So we covered most of them. Took us a moment to get there, but those are most of them. And then Greg, I don't know, like not your homework, but like something you could do if you want. Check the Lamrim Chemo, and you'll see them there.
I can find them there, but thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Are they specifically connected with aspiring bodhicitta or engaging bodhicitta?
Yeah, so these are the munsem damsha dangyamdu, right? So there's an aspiring bodhicitta with the promise, right? The first one is just the aspiring or wishing bodhicitta. Then there's aspiring or bodhicitta with the promise. It's from that one. And then you have engaging, which is with the full bodhisattva vows, right?
Because they actually sound very similar to the 18 root vows, and some of them anyway.
Well, that's because, yeah, like it's like levels of commitment, right? So yeah, it's true. It comes more as like a total commitment, very fleshed out when you come to the engaging. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. The trickiest one is never to abandon any sentient being. In Geshe's opinion, he thinks that's the trickiest one. Yeah. So this is a thing that they debate, right? In the monastery, like if one kills a sentient being, is that necessarily abandoning them? Is that a contravention of the bodhisattva vows? If one gets completely angry and thinks, I'd never want to help this sentient being, is that where the measure of the contravention is? So this is an important topic of discussion. So there's a question about like when that actual abandoning or giving up happens. Yeah. Control may pick up. Yeah. So it's really this mind of abandoning happens, like say that we get really, really angry with a particular sentient being. If we think, I don't ever want to try to help them ever, I'm never going to work for their benefit. That would be a pretty clear case of abandoning them. Yeah. So that's the measure as it's explained in the text. killing is a question because we have the story, the famous story of Buddha before his enlightenment as a bodhisattva on a boat. He knew that there was a murderer on this ship who would have killed hundreds of people. In order to save their lives, he killed the murderer. And so then, there was a question of bodhisattva couldn't abandon a being. So maybe killing isn't necessarily abandoning them. Yeah. Right. So why didn't the Buddha abandon this would-be murderer that he killed? It was his way of thinking, the Buddha when he was a bodhisattva, right? It was his way of thinking before the action. So he thought, not only do I need to protect the other sentient beings on this ship, but I can't allow him to kill 100 or so people because that will be an extremely negative karma that will lead him to an even more difficult situation. And so he considered him in the action, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So that was, he said, even if I have to have some negative karma from the act of killing, 100 lives will be saved, and the killer, the potential killer, will be saved from future negative karma. So it will be worth it. Okay. Oh, yeah. And so it was a spear. It sounds like it was a spear that was used to kill him. Yeah. Right. Right. And so one of the things that happened when Buddha Shakyamuni was walking the earth, in the earlier part of his spiritual quest, thorns would be growing and he would be trampling them underfoot. And this was said to be a subtle aspect of that karma of impaling him on the spear. Yeah. And so Moggallāyana, who was the foremost of the Buddha's disciples in miracle powers, he says, I'm going to make sure that I go ahead and clear away any of these sharp, thorny bushes wherever the Blessed One is walking. And the Buddha said, there's nothing you could do, right? This is a karmic debt from a previous lifetime, right? And so this manifestation will occur. So this is one of the things that we can understand about how, karma is unmistaken, right? So other questions, please.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, good to see you.
Yeah. Nice to see you, yeah.
There was that verse about giving your body, and all ever. And it reminded me of, the story where the Buddha was a tortoise in his life previous to being Shakyamuni Buddha. And he was laying on the beach after he saved a bunch of lives and the flies started eating his flesh. And then he made the decision to not go out back into the ocean because it would kill some of the flies. Right. And then his next life, he reached enlightenment. Well, when I first read that, the first couple times I read that story, I cringed. I thought, oh. But then I imagined myself being that tortoise and making that decision on the beach. And then every time that now when I read stories like that, I imagine actually doing it, and it takes the cringe away. Yeah. And it's like a visualization that I do. So I just wanted to ask Geshe what he thought about that.
Then Geshe la ngama di thongpa chomde de jangshub senpai impe kapla rubel gi kewa chik dua. Then rubel di ko kange tune roa sodramla chik lepswa roa ane dene dedu bu chung chung dramandra korongi sha sane halepe kale kapo redua yine rube di ko jamso nanglola yangyar dromason karin sena bu chung chung denso kashe shi drogi re samne korongi lupo di pulsa redua dichi konyong bes ane ko nguma drungdi tadi dene halepe kandes lagere shenang sapodang debo mepagi tsorochik lebsoma roa yine nga rube di yena kandes chik chungires kandes samlo tangires. Sorry, Dinah, were you saying that you were thinking that you were the tortoise, or you were thinking that you were the insect?
No, I was thinking I was the tortoise.
You were thinking you were the
and
tortoise.
I felt the flies eating my flesh and
Yeah.
making the decision not to go out into the ocean.
Yeah. Dene ko rube yin samlo tangne dene buden so sukatsu jabna yang jamso dromi tuba dende pensem chamboyena kande yapore samne.
미다테 가르쳐요.
Ko the gas chik lagre.
때 테마서 고다. 마시게 삼매고. 야, 시도 들리도 알로지 뭐야.
Yeah, so Geshe said there's many stories of the Buddha when he was a bodhisattva taking the form of various animals, but he doesn't remember the story of the tortoise so clearly. He doesn't remember the story so clearly, but there's many of them. Like I think like we can safely say hundreds, right? Where he takes the form of various animals.
야, 다 존재서 무슨 연령이나 신가서 스페셜 냐면 더 알아봐. 다 소속을 찾지니 범벌 잡아도 다 되게 로지 뭐야.
And this is a recurring theme in the stories of the Bodhisattva, right? Where the Bodhisattva gives their flesh and hence eventually their life in order to protect and to assist a sentient being.
다 단단 간조 다 야와 쇼바도 손지 쪼된데 아마 그러니까 손지 셈비 임비가라. 롱가 지나 안도 다 뭐지 고사로 왔어.
So Geshe said the most famous one is the story of a tiger, right? And at this time, the being who became Shakyamuni Buddha and the being who became Maitreya Buddha, they were, I believe, brothers in that lifetime, and they encountered the tigress and her cubs together. And the tigress and the cubs were starving, and there was no immediate source of food available except their flesh. So the elder brother, Geshe believes, was the being who became Maitreya, and the younger brother was Shakyamuni in this case. Right. So at the time they were torn, right? They didn't really know what to do. And Geshe said what he remembers of the story is they went back, and not wanting to trouble his brother, the Bodhisattva who became Maitreya, the Bodhisattva who became Shakyamuni, under the cover of darkness, he returned to where the tigress was with her cubs, and there he offered his body. And the way the story unfolds is very graphic, right? The mother tigress is so emaciated that she can't actually eat flesh. So he first has to cut his flesh open and give her some blood to drink to start it off. So it's very graphic. And so Geshe said, like there's this theme, like with the turtle story you told, there's like this similar theme that's occurring in many rebirths as different humans and animals before enlightenment. So it is said that in terms of Shakyamuni Buddha and Maitreya, the one who first brought forth bodhicitta was actually Maitreya. But Shakyamuni was the first one who reached Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, complete and perfect enlightenment. And so this is a topic of debate at the monastery as well. Why did Shakyamuni Buddha get there first, despite Maitreya bringing forth bodhicitta first? And they say that it's because of the strength of Shakyamuni's meditation on equalizing and exchanging self and others. Yep. Yep. Ale. Yeah. How goes Sapsena? Kutsap. Kawala. Right, right. And so it's also said, just connected more with Shakyamuni and Maitreya, that Shakyamuni Buddha, right, he would become the wheel-turning Buddha of this world. So he comes to this world, and that Maitreya remains in the Tushita realm, in part to instruct the Devas, to instruct celestial beings. So he's kind of like the ambassador in the Deva realm. So there's a Tibetan title, which is kind of, it means essentially Lord Ambassador or Lord Regent. So he's representing the Buddha up there, right? Well, the Buddha is down here. And this is, and in the stories that Dinah was touching on, right? This relationship between those bodhisattvas who became Maitreya and Shakyamuni Buddha, their connection is revealed in many, many lifetimes in this collection of stories. So Geshe said, sorry, a roundabout way, but maybe interesting conversation nonetheless. And so if there's no further questions, we can end here. We're at the end of our time. But Geshe said, in terms of the way of thinking about these stories, right, whatever works for you in terms of bringing forth that brave, courageous attitude, right, which is the attitude of the Bodhisattva, right? That's really what we want to do. So if we have that courage, if we have that determination, that's going to give us the power and strength to accomplish things, right? Yeah. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anybody before we say goodbye. I guess this is okay. Okay, since you're quiet. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll say goodbye, and everybody, it was so lovely to see everybody, and it would be great to see you next Sunday if you have time. Take care. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
So much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.